The words were meant to break me. 10 years and what did you give me? 2 kids and complaints. You were a mistake from the start. My first thought wasn't of my own heart, which felt like it had splintered into 1,000 tiny, sharp pieces inside my chest. It was of the 2 small hearts beating in their beds upstairs. Leo and Maya. My son and my daughter. They were asleep, safe for now in the innocent quiet of their rooms, unaware that their world, the very foundation of it, was cracking apart right beneath them. He stood there. Ethan. My husband of a decade. His face a mask of cold satisfaction. He had wanted this moment. I could see it in the glitter of his eyes. He was enjoying the destruction. And she was there, too. Chloe. She stepped into her home as if she were stepping onto a yacht. All sleek lines and expensive perfume that smelled like something I could never afford. She glanced at me, her expression a careful mix of pity and triumph. Oh, she said, her voice soft and sharp at the same time. You're still here. But that wasn't how the night began. The night began, as most nights did, with a beautiful, ordinary chaos. It began with the scent of roasted chicken and rosemary filling our small kitchen in Beacon Harbor. It began with me on my knees, wiping up a puddle of spilled milk, while 6-year-old Maya insisted her green beans were too sleepy to be eaten. Her logic was unshakable. They just need a little nap in your tummy. Sweetheart, I said, my voice steady and patient, the way a mother's voice learns to be. They don't want a nap, she declared, pushing her plate away from the kitchen table. 8-year-old Leo sighed with the dramatic weight of the world on his shoulders. Mom, I don't get number 7. How can a train leaving Chicago at noon be in 2 places at once? I looked at the math problem. It was a simple question about time and speed. But through his eyes, it was a philosophical riddle. I smiled. The first genuine smile of the day. It can't. Buddy. That's the point. We just have to figure out where it is. This was my life. A puzzle of train schedules, sleepy green beans, and endless laundry. I had given up my career in logistics management without a second thought when Leo was born. Ethan had been starting his own consulting firm then. Vance & Associates. He needed me. He'd said. He needed a stable home. Someone to manage the chaos so he could build an empire. And I, full of love and a belief in the future we were building, had agreed. I became the architect of our home, the silent partner who made sure the foundation was strong so he could build his tower to the sky. After the kids were finally tucked into bed, stories read and monsters checked for under the bed, I came back downstairs. The house was quiet. I cleared the remnants of our chaotic dinner and set the table for 2. Simple white plates, the good wine glasses we rarely used, a single candle in the center. Tonight was our 10th wedding anniversary. Ethan was late, but that wasn't new. His work had become all-consuming. The late nights had become a regular feature of our marriage, a silent third person at our dinner table. I told myself it was the price of success. I told myself it was for us. For the kids. I put his plate in the oven to keep it warm and sat at the table. The flickering candlelight making shadows dance on the walls. On those walls were framed pictures of our life. Leo's first steps. Maya's toothless grin. A photo from our wedding day, where Ethan was looking at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. A small hope fluttered in my chest. A fragile thing I had learned to protect. A hope that tonight, he would come home and see me. Not just the mother, the manager, the problem solver, but me, Amelia. At 10:41 p.m., my phone buzzed on the counter. It wasn't him. I knew his ringtone. This was a text from an unknown number. My heart gave a little lurch of annoyance. Probably a political spam message. I picked it up. There was no text. Just a single photo. Ethan. My Ethan. He was leaning across a dark wood table in a restaurant I didn't recognize. His sleeves rolled up. A wide, easy smile on his face. The kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in years. A woman was beside him. Her hair a cascade of perfect blonde waves. Her red lips parted in a laugh. Her hand was resting on his chest. A casual, possessive gesture that screamed intimacy. Chloe Sterling. One of his new clients. He had told me. The phone didn't shake. I did. From the inside out. A deep, cold tremor that started in my bones. I stared at the photo. At the way the light caught the joy in his eyes. A joy he no longer brought home. My breath hitched. A tiny, silent betrayal. I could see the name of the restaurant on the menu in the corner of the photo. The Gilded Sparrow. It was 2 blocks away. He was 2 blocks away. living a different life, while I waited at home with a dying candle and a warming plate of chicken. I sank into a chair, the screen of the phone glowing in the dark kitchen. My mind raced, trying to find a different explanation. A business dinner, an awkward angle, a misunderstanding. But my heart knew. You always know. It's a quiet, terrible certainty that settles in your gut long before your mind is ready to accept it. My first instinct was to protect. I deleted the message and the photo, swiping it into a digital abyss, not to hide the truth from myself, but to shield my children from its fallout. I would not let them wake up to a mother shattered on the kitchen floor. I stood up and went to the hallway mirror. I practiced a calm expression. I needed to be calm. For Leo. For Maya. I didn't want to fight. I just wanted the truth. At 11:37 p.m., the key turned in the lock. The sound, once a comfort, now felt like a crack forming in the ice beneath my feet. Ethan walked in, tossing his keys into the ceramic bowl by the door. He glanced at the mirror, smoothing his hair with 2 fingers, a gesture of casual vanity. He smelled of wine and a perfume that wasn't mine. "You're late," I said. My voice was soft. It had to be soft, or it would break. "I'm important," he said, not looking at me. His gaze swept over the table. The single candle, the 2 place settings. He didn't comment on them. It was as if he didn't even see the effort. Big meeting ran over. I made dinner. It's our anniversary. Ethan. He finally turned to me, and his eyes were tired. But not just from work. They were tired of this. Tired of me. "I ate," he said. I picked up my phone from the counter. I held it out. The screen dark. My hand was steady. A small miracle. "Where were you tonight?" He shrugged, pulling off his jacket. "I told you. A meeting. With Chloe Sterling." He paused, his back to me. For a moment, I thought I saw his shoulders tense. A flicker of guilt, perhaps. But when he turned around, his face was smooth, unreadable. "Yes. She's a major client." "Is she?" I asked, my voice still quiet. "Is that all she is?" He walked closer, his shadow falling over me. He looked down at me, and a slow, cruel smile spread across his lips. The smile from the photograph. "You really want the truth, Amelia? Or do you want to keep playing house?" The coldness in his tone was a slap. The question was the start of the end. And that's when the words came. The words that were meant to break me. "You're pathetic," he said, the smile widening. 10 years. 10 years, and what did you give me? 2 kids and complaints. You were a mistake from the start. She's everything you could never be. Young. Beautiful. Worth my time. He gestured vaguely around the quiet house. This is a cage. And I'm done being in it." The words echoed in the space where the sound of my heart used to be. Nothing. 10 years of my life. Of giving up my dreams for his. Of raising our children. Of building this home. And he called it nothing. "I left my job for you," I whispered. The facts a pathetic shield against his cruelty. "I sold my car when you needed capital for your first inventory. I stayed up all night doing your books when we couldn't afford an accountant." He laughed. A short, sharp, ugly sound. "You sound like a housekeeper reciting her duties. You think folding my shirts makes you a partner? You think roasting a chicken makes you a wife? You're a routine, Amelia. A habit. I want a life." The doorbell rang then. A cheerful, jarring chime that cut through the tension. My stomach clenched. "Who is that?" Ethan's smile turned razor sharp. "You already know." He opened the door, and there she was. Chloe. Stepping into her home like a spotlight was following her. Chloe's perfume bloomed in the hallway. A sweet, cloying scent that felt like an invasion. "Hello, Ethan," she said, kissing his cheek. Then she turned and finally noticed me. The way you might notice a piece of furniture that doesn't match the room. "Oh, you're still here. This is my home," I said, my voice a thread. "This is where my children are sleeping." I said it to remind him, to remind them both, that this wasn't just a house. It was a nest, a sanctuary. But the word children seemed to annoy Chloe. She glanced up the stairs with a look of distaste. "Is it?" she asked, her eyes sweeping over the dinner table. The single melted candle. The plate of cold chicken. "It looks more like a waiting room." She ran a manicured finger along the edge of the counter. "Ethan has been so unhappy here. The noise. The mess. It's hard for a man like him to thrive in this This was my life's work. The small scuff marks on the wall from Leo's toy trucks. The faint crayon drawing of a son Maya had made near the baseboard. Every part of this house was a testament to the family I had nurtured. Ethan nodded in agreement, like a man confirming a diagnosis. She's right. I can't breathe here anymore. He looked at me, his eyes devoid of any of the warmth they once held. You need to leave. Amelia. Leave. The word was absurd. Where would I go? Where would we go? That's not my problem, he said, his voice flat. He pulled his wallet from his pocket and took out a few bills. $200. He tossed them on the counter as if leaving a tip. That should get you a hotel for a night or two. Figure it out. Chloe smirked. Don't be so dramatic. People find places to live every day. It's not that hard. My hands were shaking. I hid them behind my back, clenching them into fists. You can't do this. Ethan. You can't just throw your children out into the street in the middle of the night. I'm not throwing them out, he said, his voice rising in irritation. I'm getting you out. They just happen to be attached. The cruelty of that sentence hung in the air, thick and suffocating. He saw our children as an accessory to me, a burden he was shedding. Please, I begged, my pride turning to dust. Don't do this in front of them. Let me wait until morning. No, he said, his decision absolute. I want a clean slate. I want to wake up tomorrow and have this over with. Chloe is staying here tonight. Chloe smiled at that. A small, satisfied curl of her lips. She walked over to the table and picked up one of the wine glasses I had set out. She studied it for a moment before setting it down. These are a little dated, don't you think? She said to no one in particular. The casual cruelty. The complete disregard for my life. My home. My children. It snapped something inside me. The desperation vanished, replaced by a cold, clear focus. I would not let my children witness a screaming match. I would not let them see their mother crumble. I would protect them, even from this. Fine, I said. The word was quiet, but it was solid. Ethan seemed surprised by my quick surrender. Fine. Yes. Fine. I met his gaze, and for the first time that night, I didn't look away. Give me the credit card. What? The joint credit card. I said. If I'm leaving, I'm not leaving with just $100. You will provide for your children. He hesitated, then laughed. Right. So you can run up a bill out of spite? I don't think so. He took the card out of his wallet and a pair of scissors from the kitchen drawer. He cut it in half right in front of me. The plastic snapped with a sickening finality. You're on your own, Amelia. You wanted to be so independent before you met me. Here's your chance. The keys, he said, holding out his hand. House key. Car key. I took the keys from the hook by the door and placed them in his open palm. The metal felt cold. Now go pack, he commanded. One suitcase for you, and a bag for the kids. I want you out in 20 minutes. 20 minutes. 20 minutes to dismantle a decade. To pack up a childhood. I turned without another word and walked up the stairs, each step feeling heavier than the last. The air upstairs was different. It smelled of baby shampoo and lavender sleep spray. It smelled like home. I pushed open Leo's door first. He was curled on his side, his favorite worn-out teddy bear clutched in his arms. The moonlight from his window cast a soft glow on his face. He looked so peaceful, so safe. A sob caught in my throat, and I swallowed it down. I couldn't cry. Not now. I knelt by his bed and gently shook his shoulder. Leo. Buddy. Wake up. His eyes fluttered open, filled with sleep. Mommy. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Sweetheart. I lied. My voice a gentle murmur. We're going on a little adventure. A surprise trip. His brow furrowed in confusion. Now. It's dark. The best adventures happen at night, I said, trying to make my voice sound exciting. Get dressed. I'll pack a bag for you. I went into Maya's room next. She was sprawled out on her stomach, her pink pajamas twisted around her. I repeated the lie, my voice even softer this time. A surprise adventure. She just smiled sleepily and let me help her into her clothes. I moved on autopilot, a machine programmed for one task: escape. I pulled a suitcase from the top of my closet and threw in clothes for myself. Practical things. Jeans, sweaters, underwear. Then I grabbed their small backpacks. For Leo, I packed his favorite superhero action figures and the book we were reading together. For Maya, her stuffed elephant. Ellie. And her box of crayons. I packed their toothbrushes. I packed their nightlights. I tried to pack their entire world into 2 small bags. When I walked back downstairs, my son holding my right hand, my daughter holding my left, Ethan and Chloe were standing by the island, drinking wine from the glasses I had set out. They didn't look at the children. It was easier for them that way. Are you ready? Ethan asked, his voice impatient. Leo looked up at his father, his eyes wide with a question he didn't know how to ask. Daddy, are you coming on the adventure? Ethan's face tightened. He didn't look at his son. He looked at me. No. Daddy has to work. Oh, Leo said, his little voice full of disappointment. He squeezed my hand tighter. I walked them to the door, the suitcase bumping against my leg. I didn't look back at the photos on the wall, at the life that was no longer mine. I just focused on the feel of my children's small hands in mine. Goodbye, Ethan, I said to the closed door behind me. The night air was cold. It bit at our skin. I buckled the kids into their car seats in my old minivan, the one he always called an embarrassment. Their faces were pale in the glow of the streetlight. Mommy, I'm cold, Maya whispered. I know, baby. We'll be somewhere warm soon, I promised. Another light to add to the growing pile. I got into the driver's seat and started the car. As I pulled away from the curb, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The lights of my home, our home, were still on. A warm, welcoming glow. But it wasn't for us anymore. We drove in silence for a few minutes before Maya's small voice piped up from the back. Mommy, is Daddy mad at us? The question shattered the last of my composure. A single tear escaped and rolled down my cheek. I quickly wiped it away. No, sweetie. Of course not. Daddy is not mad at you. We ended up at a motel off the highway. A place with a flickering neon sign that said vacancy. The room smelled of stale smoke and bleach. There were 2 beds within. Scratchy blankets. I pulled back the covers, and Leo and Maya crawled in, huddling together for warmth and comfort. Mommy, can you leave the bathroom light on? Leo asked, his voice trembling slightly. Of course, baby. I sat on the edge of the other bed and watched them. They were asleep within minutes, their small bodies finally succumbing to exhaustion. They were so resilient, so trusting. And I had failed them. I had brought them to this dingy, lonely room. I had allowed their world to be broken. I sat there in the semi-darkness, the hum of the highway outside the thin window my only companion. Despair was a physical weight, pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I had nothing. No home. No money. No plan. Just $100 into sleeping children. But as I looked at their faces, at the way Maya's hand rested on Leo's arm even in sleep, a new feeling began to push through the despair. It wasn't hope. It was something harder, sharper. It was resolve. I had not failed them yet. I was still their mother. And a mother's job is to build a world for her children, even if she has to build it from ashes. I thought of my old life, the one before Ethan, before the kids, the life where I was good at my job, where people respected my mind. A name surfaced from that forgotten past. Mr. Harrison Reed. My old boss. A kind, decent man who had once told me I had the sharpest strategic mind he'd ever seen. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone, my fingers fumbling to find his old contact information, saved from a life I thought I'd left behind forever. Swallowing the last bitter remnants of my pride, I pressed the call button. It was after 1 a.m, but I didn't care. This wasn't for me. This was for the 2 small heartbeats in the next bed. The phone rang once, twice. Hello. A sleepy voice answered. Mr. Reed, I whispered, my voice cracking. It's Amelia. Amelia Hayes. I'm sorry to call so late, but I need help. There was no sleep that night, only a long, dark vigil. I sat in a lumpy armchair, watching the headlights of passing trucks slice through the thin curtains, each one a reminder of a world that was still moving on without us. At dawn, the gray light crept into the room, revealing the threadbare carpet and the peeling paint on the walls. It was the kind of place you ended up in when you had run out of other places to go. Leo woke first. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, his hair sticking up in a little tuft at the back. He looked around the strange room, his brow crinkled with the serious confusion only a child can possess. Mommy, where are we? He asked, his voice thick with sleep. It's our adventure. Remember? I said, forcing a brightness into my voice that I did not feel. This is the Adventurers Hotel. Maya stirred beside him, awakened by our voices. Is this our new house? She asked, her voice small and hopeful. The innocent question was a knife to the heart. No, baby. This is just for a little while. We're going to find a new house soon. A better one. I promised it to her. And in doing so, I promised it to myself. It became a vow. Later that morning, I left the kids in the room with the television on, a bag of stale pretzels from the vending machine, and strict instructions not to open the door for anyone. I drove to a part of the city I hadn't seen in years. The financial district, where glass towers scraped the sky. Mr. Harrison Reed's office was on the top floor of one of them. His office was exactly as I remembered it, smelling of old leather, paper, and coffee. It was a place of quiet, solid power. He was an older man, with kind eyes and a handshake that was firm and reassuring. He didn't waste time with pity. He just pointed to a chair, sat behind his large mahogany desk, and said, "Tell me everything, Amelia." And so I did. I told him about the 10 years of sacrifice, about the photo, about Chloe. I told him about being thrown out in the middle of the night with my children. I didn't cry. My voice was flat, detached, as if I were reporting on a logistical failure in a supply chain. It was the only way I could get the words out without shattering. When I finished, he was silent for a long moment, steepling his fingers under his chin. He wasn't looking at me with sorrow. He was looking at me with calculation. The way he used to look at a complex problem on a whiteboard. "What do you need from me?" he asked finally. "A job," I said immediately. "Anything. I'll be an assistant. I'll file papers. I'll get coffee. I need an income. I have to get my kids out of that motel." He shook his head slowly. "I'm not going to give you a job, Amelia." My heart sank. The last flicker of hope was about to be extinguished. "Because," he continued, leaning forward, "you're not an assistant. You are a CEO who has been running the most complex startup in the world for the last 8 years. I stared at him, confused. "What are you talking about?" "A family," he said, his voice firm. "You've been managing a 24/7 operation with demanding, unpredictable clients. You've handled budgeting, scheduling, crisis management, supply procurement, and personnel disputes. Don't you see? You didn't stop working when you had Leo. You got a promotion to the hardest job there is." I had never thought of it that way. I had just seen it as being a mom. "Ethan thinks you gave him nothing, Mr. Reed went on, a flash of anger in his eyes. "That man is a fool. You gave him the most valuable thing of all, order. You managed the chaos of his life so he could have the simple, linear focus to build his company. He didn't build an empire. You built the foundation. And he just put a fancy roof on top." Tears welled in my eyes then, hot and sudden. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of recognition. Someone finally saw what I had done. He pushed a notepad and a pen across the desk towards me. "You have the skills, Amelia. What you lack is capital and a new direction. So, we're going to find one. What are you good at? What did you do for him? For the family?" That made everything work. I thought for a moment, my mind clicking back into a gear it hadn't used in years. I planned everything. The kids' birthday parties, the holiday dinners, the vacations. I organized the client dinners he hosted at our house. I made sure every detail was perfect so he could just show up and be charming. Mr. Reed smiled. A genuine, satisfied smile. "Exactly. Event planning. High-end, bespoke events. People in this city have more money than sense, and they will pay a fortune for someone to make their lives look perfect and effortless. But I have nothing." I whispered. "No name. No company. No money. You have a brain," he countered. "And a spine. That's more than most people start with." He scribbled a number on the notepad and pushed it toward me. "This is a loan. From me. Not a gift. It's seed money. Find a small, clean apartment for you and the children. Register a company. Build a website. Even a simple one. Then, you start small. You take one job and you do it perfectly. The rest will follow." He stood up, signaling the end of our meeting. "One more thing. Amelia. You are not Amelia Vance anymore. That name is his. Let him have it. You are Amelia Hayes again. Remember who that person was." I left his office feeling like I could breathe for the first time in 12 hours. The loan wasn't just money. It was a vote of confidence. It was fuel. That afternoon, I found an apartment. It was a small, two-bedroom place above a quiet bookstore. It was old, with creaky floors and radiators that hissed. But it was clean, and the afternoon sun streamed through the windows. Most importantly, it was safe. When I signed the lease, I used my maiden name, Amelia Hayes. It felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I thought was gone forever. The kids were thrilled. For them, the empty rooms were not a sign of poverty, but a blank canvas. They ran through the apartment, their happy shrieks echoing off the bare walls. That night, we slept on blankets on the floor, huddled together. It wasn't a motel. It was a home. Our home. Over the next week, a new routine formed. I got the kids registered at the local public school. I bought secondhand furniture, a table, 3 chairs, 2 small beds. We ate macaroni and cheese, and I told them we were having a camping adventure. They believed me. At night, after they were asleep, my real work began. I sat at our small kitchen table with a used laptop Mr. Reed's assistant had given me. I registered my company. I chose the name carefully, Aura Events, because it wasn't just about the logistics. It was about the feeling, the atmosphere you create for people. I spent hours building a simple, elegant website with pictures I bought from a stock photo service. It had 3 promises: we are punctual, we are prepared, we handle the problems you never knew you had. My first client came from a flyer I put up on the community board at a local coffee shop. A woman named Sarah, a single mom who worked 2 jobs, needed help with her daughter's 6th birthday party. I just wanted to be special for her. She told me over the phone, her voice weary. But I'm so tired. And I don't have the energy to make it magical. I can do magical. I told her. The budget was tiny, but I treated it like it was the most important event in the world. I went to dollar stores and craft shops. I made decorations by hand. I found a teenage girl from the neighborhood to do face painting for $20. The party was in a small park pavilion. On the day of the event, I arrived 2 hours early. I hung streamers and balloons. I set up a table with a pink tablecloth and plates that had unicorns on them. When Sarah arrived with her daughter, Lily, the little girl's eyes went wide. She gasped, "Mommy, it's a princess party." For the next 2 hours, I was more than a planner. I was a drink pourer, a napkin distributor, a lost shoe finder, and a tear wiper. When one of the kids spilled a whole pitcher of juice, I had a backup tablecloth ready. When the cake started to lean a little to one side, I used a strategically placed plastic unicorn to prop it up. No one noticed. It was quiet. Invisible crisis management. At the end of the party, Sarah pressed a check into my hand. It was a small amount, but it felt like $1 million. "Thank you," she said, her eyes shining with gratitude. "I could never have done this. You made it look so easy." Easy wasn't the right word. But as I walked home that evening, my feet aching and my hair smelling like birthday cake, my heart felt full. For the first time in a long time, it didn't ache for the wrong reasons. I had taken a small piece of chaos and turned it into joy. It was a start. It was everything. Word of mouth is a quiet but powerful force. Sarah, the grateful mother from the unicorn party, told her sister. Her sister, a nurse, told a doctor she worked with, who was planning a small backyard wedding. 2 weeks later, my phone rang. I heard you're the person who can make things happen without any drama. The doctor said, "My fiancé and I are a little overwhelmed. We just want to get married without the world ending." No world ending. I confirmed, a small smile on my face. "We can manage that." The wedding was my first real test. It required a level of coordination far beyond a child's birthday party. I spent my days juggling Leo's soccer practice and Maya's newfound passion for ballet, with sourcing a reliable caterer who didn't charge a fortune, finding a student photographer with a great eye, and renting chairs. My life became a series of color-coded binders and detailed checklists. The kids would do their homework at the kitchen table while I was on the phone, negotiating prices for tablecloths. "Mom, what's a contingency plan?" Leo asked one evening, peering at one of my spreadsheets. "It's a plan for when things go wrong, buddy," I explained. "Like when Maya puts her crayons in the toaster?" "Exactly like that," I said, ruffling his hair. "Life is full of crayons in the toaster. You just have to be ready with a backup plan." Meanwhile, I existed in a parallel universe to Ethan. He made his child support payments, but they were always exactly on the day they were due. Never a day before. A cold, legal transaction. He saw the kids every other weekend. As mandated by the court, they would come home quiet and a little sad. Leo once told me that Daddy's new house was very white and that Chloe didn't like it. When they left their toys on the floor, Maya said Chloe's perfume made her nose itch. Ethan and Chloe's life played out on social media, a curative feat of perfection. Photos of them on a sailboat. Caption freedom. A picture of them at a black tie gala. Caption power couple. One photo, in particular, made my breath catch. It was of them in Paris, kissing in front of the Eiffel Tower. It was a trip Ethan had always promised he would take me on for our 10th anniversary. He had taken her instead. I saw the pictures. I felt the sting. But then I would look away from the screen and see my children, real and warm and needing a snack. And the sting would fade. My reality was not a caption. It was the sticky jam fingerprints on the kitchen counter. The sound of their laughter as they chased each other around our small living room. The weight of Maya's head on my lap as we read a book before bed. I had something he never would, the beautiful, messy truth. My reputation for being obsessively prepared and miraculously congru. I took on a charity luncheon for a local animal shelter. Then a retirement party for a beloved high school teacher. I built a network of good people, florists who gave me fair prices, bakers who made beautiful cakes, Jays who could read a room. I paid every invoice the day I received it. I brought coffee and donuts for the setup cruise. I treated everyone with respect. From the client who wrote the check to the person bussing the tables. You're different. One of my regular caterers, a gruff man named Sal, told me one afternoon. The other planners, they scream. You just get it done. I started to make a little money. Not enough to be comfortable, but enough to stop holding my breath every time I went to the grocery store. I hired my first part-time helper, a college student named Rita who was smart, fast, and didn't panic when a fuse blew 2 minutes before the guests were set to arrive. My life was a frantic, exhausting, exhilarating balancing act. I was a mother first. Always. I never missed a school play or a parent-teacher conference. But in the slivers of time in between after the kids were in bed, before they woke up, during Maya's ballet class, he was a business owner. I was building. One evening, I met with Mr. Reed in his office to go over my progress. He looked at my books, at the small but steady stream of income, and nodded in approval. You're doing well, Amelia, he said. But you're still thinking small. You're afraid to charge what you're worth. If I raise my prices, people might not hire me. I admitted. The wrong people won't. He corrected. The right ones will. You're not selling balloons and paper plates anymore. You're selling peace of mind. That's a luxury item. It's time you started pricing it accordingly. He slid a business card across his desk. My friend, Claudia Antunes, is a partner at Stonebridge Capital. It's a top-tier private equity firm. They host a quarterly investor gala, and their last one was, in her words, a disaster. The planner was a hotshot from a big firm who cared more about how he looked than how the event ran. Call her. My heart hammered against my ribs. Stonebridge Capital was in a different league. Their events were legendary. The budgets were astronomical. It was the kind of job that could make a company's reputation overnight. Or, if it went wrong, destroy it. I don't know if I'm ready, I said. My voice barely a whisper. Yes, you are, Mr. Reed said, his gaze unwavering. You've been handling crayons in the toaster for years. A few arrogant investors will be easy. It took me 2 days to work up the courage to make the call. When I did, Claudia Antunes' voice was crisp and professional. She agreed to a meeting. The night before, I laid out my best outfit, a simple black dress, the only one I owned that didn't have a tiny, faint stain somewhere on it. I reviewed my portfolio of small, successful events, feeling a surge of anxiety. What was a backyard wedding compared to a gala for billionaires? Then Maya woke up crying from a bad dream. I went into her room and held her, stroking her hair until her breathing evened out and she fell back asleep. As I sat there in the dark, listening to the soft sounds of my children sleeping, my fear began to recede. I wasn't doing this for me. I was doing this for them. I was fighting for their future, for a life where they would never have to sleep in a motel room again. That thought was a shield. It was armor. The Stonebridge Capital office was intimidating. It was all glass and chrome and silent. Important-looking people moving with quiet purpose. Claudia Antunes was a formidable woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper suit. She didn't offer small talk. Mr. Reed speaks very highly of you. She began, getting straight to the point. But your company is new. Your portfolio is modest. Why should we trust you with our most important event of the year? I took a breath. I didn't try to oversell myself. I just told her the truth. Because I understand that an event isn't about the flowers or the lighting. I said, my voice steady. It's about control. It's about anticipating every possible point of failure and having a solution in place before it happens. It's about making your guests feel so seamless and well cared for that they don't even notice the mechanics behind it. Your last planner was focused on the show. I'm focused on the foundation. I walked her through my process, my checklists, my contingency plans. I explained how I vetted my vendors, how I managed my crews. I wasn't selling magic. I was selling competence. She listened intently, her expression unreadable. When I was finished, she was silent for a moment. We are also interviewing Vance and Associates for this contract, she said, dropping the name like a stone. Ethan Vance is a very persuasive man. He's promising us the moon. My blood ran cold. Ethan. He was my competition. The thought of losing this, of losing it to him, was unbearable. But I kept my face a mask of calm professionalism. Anyone can promise the moon, I said quietly. My job is to make sure the rocket doesn't explode on the launch pad. Claudia Antunes allowed herself a small, brief smile. We'll be in touch, Ms. Hayes. The next 3 days were agonizing. I tried to distract myself with work, with the kids, but the question hung over me. Would it be me? Or him? The call came on a Thursday afternoon, while I was standing in the checkout line at the grocery store. Maya pulling on my sleeve asking for a candy bar, and Leo explaining a complex rule from a video game. My phone buzzed. It was Claudia. Ms. Hayes, she said, her voice all business. Stonebridge Capital would like to offer the contract for our quarterly gala to Aura Events. I sank against the checkout counter, my legs suddenly weak. Thank you, I managed to say, my voice thick with emotion. We won't let you down. I know you won't, she said. By the way, I thought you should know. Mr. Vance's proposal was flashy. But when I asked him about his contingency plans for a potential power outage, he laughed and said, we have candles. You, on the other hand, sent me a 3-page document detailing backup generators, emergency lighting grids, and a communication protocol for staff. We don't invest in flash. Ms. Hayes, we invest in security. After the call ended, I just stood there for a moment, the world buzzing around me. I had done it. I had won. I had beaten him. Not because I was his ex-wife, not out of pity, but because I was better. I was more prepared. I was stronger. Mommy, are you okay? Maya asked, tugging on my hand. I looked down at her, and then at Leo, and a huge, brilliant smile spread across my face. I scooped her up into a hug. I'm better than okay. Sweetie, I said, laughing. I'm great. And for the first time in a very long time, it wasn't a lie. I bought her the candy bar. I bought 2. Winning the Stonebridge contract was like flipping a switch. Suddenly, Aura Events wasn't just a small-time operation run from my kitchen table. It was a legitimate player. The deposit from Stonebridge Capital was more money than I had ever seen in my own bank account. The first thing I did wasn't glamorous. I didn't buy a new car or designer handbag. I paid Mr. Reed back every single penny of his loan, with a handwritten note that simply said, thank you for believing in me. Then I hired a lawyer and set up trust funds for Leo and Maya. It was a quiet, fiercely protective act. I was building a wall around their future, brick by brick. The next thing I did was get an office. It was a small, 3-room suite in the modest but professional building, the one right next to the bookstore I lived above. It felt like a monumental step. I bought real office chairs and a coffee machine that didn't gurgle. I hired Rita full-time and brought on 2 more staff members, Clara, a stern, unflappable woman in her 50s who had the logistical mind of a 4-star general, and Jose, a young, energetic man who could charm a venue manager and lift 3 boxes of glassware at the same time. We were a team, my team, and we spent the next 2 months in a state of controlled, focused frenzy, preparing for the Stonebridge Gala. This event had to be more than perfect. It had to be silent, the kind of perfection that no one notices because it just is. Every detail was scrutinized, from the specific wattage of the light bulbs to the precise folding of the napkins. My contingency plans had contingency plans. I had backups for the caterer, the florist, and the band. I had a tailor on standby backstage for any fashion emergencies. I had a stain removal kit in my briefcase that could handle anything from red wine to motor oil. My days were a blur. I would wake up at 5, answer emails, get the kids ready for school, drop them off, and then head to the office. I'd spend the day in meetings, on-site visits, and on the phone. A constant whirlwind of decision-making. At 3 o'clock, my mom timer would go off. I'd pick up the kids, help with homework, make dinner, and handle the beautiful, necessary chaos at bedtime. Then, at 8, after they were asleep, I'd open my laptop and become a CEO again, often working until past midnight. I was exhausted, but it was a good kind of tired. It was the ache of building something, not the ache of being broken. Ethan must have heard about me winning the contract. One Saturday, when he dropped the kids off, he lingered at the door. He looked thinner, and there were faint lines of stress around his eyes that hadn't been there before. "I heard you're doing some party planning," he said, his tone dismissive, as if I were arranging tea parties for dolls. "I have a company," I said, my voice neutral. I refused to let him see how much this mattered. He laughed. "A short, bitter sound. Right. A little hobby to keep you busy. Good for you." He glanced past me into our small, humble apartment. "Look, Amelia, this is no place to raise my children. They need stability. They should be with me." A cold fury washed over me. They have stability, Ethan. They have a mother who shows up for them every single day. They have a home where they're allowed to leave their toys on the floor. His jaw tightened. "Don't be naive. You can't give them what I can. Once I close this new deal with the Reading Group, I'll have my lawyer file for full custody. A judge will see what's best for them." The threat hung in the air. A poisoned dart aimed at my heart. Losing my children. It was the only weapon he had left, and he was using it. He was trying to destabilize me, to make me fail. "Get off my property, Ethan," I said, my voice low and dangerous. He smirked, confident he found my weakness. "Just a warning, Amelia. Enjoy your little hobby while it lasts." After he left, I closed the door and leaned against it, my body trembling with rage and fear. He wouldn't take them. I wouldn't let him. The Stonebridge Gala was no longer just a job. It was my declaration of independence. It was the proof I needed, not just for the world, but for the courts, that I could provide a better life for my children than he ever could. The night of the gala arrived. The venue was a grand ballroom at the Beacon Harbor Museum of Art, a magnificent space with soaring ceilings and marble floors. My team moved with quiet, practiced efficiency. We were a silent army in black, communicating through headsets, anticipating needs before they arose. I walked the floor one last time before the guests arrived, my eyes scanning every detail. The flowers were perfect. The lighting was sublime. The tables were set with mathematical precision. Everything was in its place. I wasn't in a glamorous gown. I was in a practical black suit, my hair pulled back in a severe bun. I was a commander in the field, not a guest at the ball. I positioned myself in our command center, a small room off the main hall with monitors showing feeds from various points in the ballroom. The guests began to arrive, a river of wealth and power flowing into the room. Then I saw them. Ethan and Chloe. He was in a tuxedo that seemed a little too big for him. She was poured into a shimmering gold dress, her smile bright and brittle. They moved through the room with an air of entitlement, but I could see the strain in Ethan's posture. He was performing, trying to project an image of success that was, I suspected, beginning to crack. He had no idea that the flawless evening he was walking into, the event he had lost, was my creation. My name, Amelia Hayes, and my company, or events, were on the program. But he wouldn't look. He wouldn't deign to notice the details. He would just assume it was the work of some established, faceless firm. From my command center, I watched him on the monitors. I listened to the ambient microphones we had placed to monitor the crowd's volume and mood. I heard his voice, loud and boastful, trying to hold court with a group of investors. "The market is volatile, but Vance & Associates is more nimble than ever," he was saying. "We're lean. We're aggressive." Then I heard another voice, a man I recognized as one of the city's most powerful venture capitalists. "I hear you lost the Stonebridge account, Ethan. Tough break. This event is flawless. Whoever they hired instead is a genius. Ethan's laughter was a little too loud. It's fine. We're focused on bigger things. But I saw his eyes scan the room. A flicker of insecurity in his gaze. He was looking for the genius. The rival who had bested him. Chloe seemed bored. She was more interested in the champagne and the photographers. She kept pulling Ethan into the path of anyone with a camera, posing with a practice pout. The evening progressed like clockwork. The dinner service was seamless. The speeches were perfectly timed. From my perch, I managed it all. I sent Jose to handle a drunken guest who was getting too loud. I had Clara discreetly fix a wobbly table. I rerouted a waiter to bring a glass of water to a woman who looked faint. I was a ghost in the machine. The architect of silence. Then, the moment I had been waiting for. It was time for Claudia Antunes to give her remarks. She took the stage, elegant and composed. "Good evening," she said, her voice clear and commanding. "I want to thank you all for being here tonight. As you can see, Stonebridge Capital believes in excellence, not just in our investments, but in everything we do." She paused, letting her eyes sweep the room. Ethan was in the front, looking up at her, a fixed, eager smile on his face. "Many of you have commented on the flawless execution of this evening's event," Claudia continued. "And you're right. It is flawless. And it's because we chose a partner who shares our values of meticulous preparation, unwavering competence, and quiet strength. A partner who understands that true power isn't about being the loudest voice in the room, but about being the one who has already thought of everything." Ethan was practically preening, assuming she was making a general statement about corporate synergy. "So I'd like to take a moment to thank the brilliant mind behind this evening," Claudia said, her eyes finding the camera that fed to my monitor. She was looking right at me. "The founder of Oro Events. Please join me in a round of applause for Ms. Amelia Hayes." The name hit the room like a shockwave. I watched on the monitor as 100 heads turned, searching. But it was Ethan's face I focused on. His smile didn't just falter. It collapsed. His face went slack with disbelief, then confusion, then a dawning, horrified understanding. His head whipped around, his eyes wide, scanning the crowd, searching for me. Chloe, beside him, looked utterly bewildered. "Amelia Hayes?" she whispered, loud enough for the nearby microphones to pick up. "Who is that?" Ethan didn't answer. He just stared, his face ashen. The blood had drained from it completely. The foundation of his world, the one he thought was made of his own genius, had just been revealed to be built on the very ground he had tried to burn. And he was standing in my house now. The applause was a rolling wave of polite, appreciative sound. In the command center, my team erupted. Rita grabbed my arm, her face glowing. "You did it, Amelia. They're clapping for you." Jose gave a whoop of joy. Even Clara, my stoic general, cracked a thin, proud smile. But I couldn't celebrate yet. My eyes were locked on the monitor, on Ethan. He looked like a man who had been struck by lightning. His mouth hung slightly open. His gaze darted wildly around the room, searching for the source of his humiliation. He was a cornered animal. Chloe was pulling on his sleeve, her perfectly painted face a mask of confusion and annoyance. "Ethan, what is going on? Do you know her?" The applause began to die down. Claudia Antunes was still on stage, smiling. "Ms. Hayes is a testament to the fact that talent and tenacity are the true drivers of success," she said, delivering the final, devastating blow. "We at Stonebridge are proud to be her partners." I watched Ethan push his chair back, his movements jerky and uncoordinated. He stumbled slightly, bumping into the table. A wine glass shattered but didn't fall. He was unraveling in real time, in front of the most powerful people in the city. He looked at Chloe, his eyes pleading, as if she could somehow explain this impossible reality. But she just stared back, her expression hardening from confusion into contempt. She was realizing, in that moment, that she had hitched her wagon to a falling star. "I need to find her," I heard him mutter into a hot mic near his table. He started moving through the crowd, his steps unsteady. He was no longer the confident titan of industry. He was a ghost haunting the scene of his own downfall. "He's coming for the back rooms," Clara said, her voice sharp and professional, pulling me from my trance. "Security is on standby." "No," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. I took off my headset. "It's okay. I'll handle it." I looked at my team. "You all keep the event running. The guests are not to be disturbed. This ends quietly." I stepped out of the command center and into the quiet, carpeted service corridor that ran behind the ballroom. The distant sound of music and laughter was muffled here. It was a place of shadow and function. The hidden scaffolding that held up the glittering facade. I stood there, under the flat, fluorescent lights, and I waited. It didn't take long. A door at the far end of the corridor burst open, and he stumbled in. He saw me immediately. For a long second, he just stared, as if his brain refused to process what his eyes were seeing. The woman he had called a housekeeper, the mistake he had thrown out into the night, was standing here, in command of the very event that was meant to solidify his status. Amelia? He breathed. The name a ragged whisper. It can't be. Hello, Ethan, I said. My voice didn't shake. It was as calm and steady as the floor beneath my feet. He took a step closer, his eyes wild with a cocktail of emotions, disbelief, rage, and a terrifying sliver of fear. What is this? What have you done? I built a business, I said simply. A business? He scoffed. The sound hysterical. This isn't a business. This is some kind of trick. You stole this from me. You conspired with Reed. With Antunes, they set me up. He was grasping for any explanation, any conspiracy that didn't involve the simple, unbearable truth that I had done this myself. No one set you up, Ethan, I said, my voice still quiet. You lost the contract because your proposal was inadequate. I won it because mine was better. It's just business. Business. He spat, his face turning red. You know nothing about business. You were folding laundry. You were making macaroni and cheese. Yes, I said. I was. And I was also raising 2 children, managing a household, and propping up your entire life so you could play CEO. It turns out, those skills are quite transferable. He lunged forward then, grabbing my arms. His grip was tight, desperate. You will not do this to me, he hissed, his face inches from mine. You will not humiliate me. This is my world, Amelia, not yours. You are nothing without me. The old Amelia would have flinched. The old Amelia would have cried. But I was not the old Amelia. I looked down at his hands on my arms, then back up into his eyes, and I felt nothing. No fear. No pain. Only a kind of distant, clinical pity. Let go of me, Ethan, I said, my voice dropping to a low, cold command. He was so consumed by his own rage that he didn't hear the footsteps approaching from behind him. A moment later, 2 large security guards, my security guards, were there. One of them placed a heavy hand on Ethan's shoulder. Sir, the guard said, his voice a calm, immovable object. Is there a problem here? Ethan's head snapped around. He saw the guards, their size, their professionalism, and something in him broke. His grip on my arms loosened. He looked back at me, his rage crumbling into a pathetic, pleading desperation. Amelia, please, he whimpered. Don't do this. Think of the kids. We can fix this. I'll make you a partner. Vanson Hayes. It has a nice ring to it. The offer was so absurd, so profoundly delusional, that I almost laughed. He still thought he had something to offer me. He still thought he was in control. It's or events, Ethan, I said, pulling my arms free. And I'm the sole owner. I looked at the security guards. Please escort Mr. Vance out through the service exit. He seems to be unwell. You can't do this, he shrieked as they began to lead him away. I'm a guest. I'm Ethan Vance. Not anymore, I said, more to myself than to him. I watched them march him down the corridor. His shouts echoed for a moment and then were cut off as a door at the far end closed behind him. And then, there was silence. I stood there for a long moment in the quiet hallway, the adrenaline slowly draining out of me. I had faced the monster, and I hadn't flinched. He had no power over me anymore. His threats were empty. His rage was impotent. My headset crackled to life in my hand. It was Rita. Amelia? Are you okay? The final speech is in 2 minutes. The mayor is on deck. I took a deep breath. The air clean and cool. I put the headset back on. I'm fine. Rita, I said, my voice clear and strong. Everything is under control. Let's bring this home. I walked back toward the command center, my steps confident and sure. But as I passed the service door, I saw her. Chloe. She was standing in the shadows, her gold dress looking cheap and garish under the fluorescent lights. She had clearly seen the whole thing. She looked at me, her eyes wide with a new kind of understanding. The smugness was gone. The pity was gone. All that was left was a raw, naked calculation. She was reassessing her assets, and she had just realized the man she had invested in was now bankrupt. She didn't say a word. She just watched me with the eyes of a predator who has just seen bigger, more dangerous prey. Then, without a backward glance toward the door where Ethan had been dragged away, she smoothed her dress, lifted her chin, and slipped back into the ballroom, back into the party. A survivor, already searching for a new host. I didn't care. She was irrelevant, a footnote in a story that was no longer about her, or Ethan. It was about me. I stepped back into the command center, and the warmth and energy of my team surrounded me. On the monitor, the mayor of Beacon Harbor was walking to the stage. The party was a resounding success. We had done it. I had done it. The night wasn't over. But for me, the war was. The final champagne corks had popped. The last of the elegantly dressed guests had drifted out into the cool night air, murmuring about the seamless perfection of the evening. My team was conducting the quiet, efficient teardown, a reverse ballet of packing and loading. I stood on the now empty ballroom floor, the grand space silent except for the hum of the cleaning crew's vacuums. It was over. We had succeeded beyond my wildest dreams. But a new, colder reality was setting in. Ethan's threat about custody. He was humiliated and cornered. A man like that doesn't just retreat. He lashes out. He would use the courts. He would use our children. He would try to burn down my new world because he couldn't stand to see me thrive in it. The victory of the night felt hollow. Temporary. The real battle was just beginning. A week later, I was served with the papers. He was filing for sole custody of Leo and Maya, citing my unstable living situation, my unproven and volatile new career, and, in a move of breathtaking cruelty, my emotional instability that made me an unfit mother. He had twisted my quiet departure from our home into an act of abandonment. He painted my methodical, exhausting work to build a life for us as reckless ambition. His lawyer was one of the most ruthless in the city. Mr. Reed had connected me with a good lawyer. A calm, intelligent woman named Evelyn Reed, no relation. Just a happy coincidence. We sat in her conference room, the threatening legal documents spread out between us. He's playing dirty, Amelia, Evelyn said, her expression grim. He's going to try to bury you in depositions and motions. He wants to drain your resources and your will to fight. He won't succeed. I said, though my stomach was a knot of fear. I will not lose my children. Good, Evelyn said, a flicker of a smile on her face. Because we're going to fight smarter. He thinks you're still the woman he threw out a year ago. We're going to show him, and the court, exactly who you are now. The months that followed were a grueling war of attrition. Ethan's legal team was relentless. They subpoenaed my business records, my personal bank statements, even the school's attendance records for Leo and Maya, looking for any missed day, any tiny crack in my armor. They scheduled depositions that lasted for hours, asking invasive, humiliating questions designed to make me break down. Through it all, I kept working. Aura Events was flourishing. The success of the Stonebridge Gala had opened doors I never knew existed. We were in high demand. Every contract I signed, every successful event I executed, was another piece of evidence for my case. It was proof of my stability, my competence, my ability to provide. My work wasn't a distraction from my role as a mother. It was the ultimate expression of it. I was building a fortress for my children, and every invoice I sent was another stone in its walls. The hardest part was the children. They were confused and scared. Leo's teacher called me, concerned that he was getting into fights at school. Maya started having nightmares again. They would come home from their weekends with Ethan looking withdrawn, parroting things he had obviously told them. Daddy says his house is bigger, Maya told me once, her voice small. Daddy says you work too much, Leo said another time, his eyes filled with a conflict he was too young to understand. I held them close. I read them extra stories. I reassured them, over and over, that they were loved, that they were safe, that their home with me was forever. I never, ever spoke a bad word about their father in front of them. I would not stoop to his level. I would not use my children as weapons. The day of the custody hearing arrived. It was a cold, gray morning. I sat at the plaintiff's table, my back straight, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Ethan sat across the room, flanked by his legal team. He looked confident, smug. He caught my eye and gave me a small, dismissive smile. His lawyer painted a picture of me as a desperate, struggling woman who had selfishly prioritized a vanity project of a business over her children's well-being. He brought up the motel, the tiny apartment, my long hours. Then, it was Evelyn's turn. She didn't call me to the stand. Instead, she called a series of surprise witnesses. First, she called Sarah, the mother from the unicorn birthday party. Sarah spoke, with simple, heartfelt honesty, about how I had created a magical day for her daughter out of almost nothing. She wasn't just a planner, Sarah said. She was a mom helping another mom. She understood what mattered. Next, she called Sal, my gruff caterer. He talked about my professionalism, my fairness, how I always made sure his staff got fed. In this business, you see a lot of sharks, he said, looking directly at Ethan. Amelia Hayes, she's one of the good ones. Solid. Then, Evelyn called her final witness. The plaintiff calls Ms. Claudia Unnoticed to the stand. A ripple of shock went through the courtroom. Ethan's jaw dropped. Claudia, the formidable partner from Stonebridge Capital, walked to the stand. The picture of corporate power and credibility. Evelyn's questions were simple and direct. Ms. Unnoticed, could you describe your professional relationship with Ms. Hayes? Amelia Hayes is one of the most competent, reliable, and forward-thinking entrepreneurs I have ever had the pleasure of working with, Claudia said, her voice ringing with authority. The gala she executed for us was not just a party. It was a complex logistical operation that had a direct, positive impact on our firm's fourth quarter investor relations. We have already signed Aura events for all our corporate functions for the next 2 years. Evelyn nodded. And in your opinion, Ms. Unnoticed, what does it take to achieve that level of success? Claudia looked at me, then at the judge. It takes relentless dedication, meticulous attention to detail, grace under pressure, and an almost superhuman ability to manage chaos. Frankly, I've seen seasoned executives with 30 years of experience who possess half the grit and strategic vision of Ms. Hayes. Then came the final, perfect question. And has her role as a mother ever, in your observation, interfered with her professional duties? Claudia smiled. A rare and brilliant thing. On the contrary, I believe her role as a mother is precisely why she is so good at her job. She knows what's at stake. When Claudia stepped down, the air in the courtroom had shifted. Ethan's carefully constructed narrative had been dismantled. Piece by piece, he was no longer looking at a struggling, unstable woman. He was looking at a respected, successful CEO. The judge made her ruling an hour later. She granted me sole physical and legal custody of the children. She spoke of my remarkable resilience and my demonstrated ability to provide a stable and nurturing home. She ordered Ethan to pay a significantly higher amount of child support, commensurate with his documented income, and limited his visitation until he completed a court-mandated parenting class. I didn't look at him. I just closed my eyes for a moment. And a single, silent tear of relief traced a path down my cheek. It was over. My children were safe. They were mine. I met the kids at the school gate that afternoon, just like I did every day. They came running into my arms, their backpacks bouncing, their faces bright with the simple joy of the end of a school day. Guess what? I said, hugging them both tightly. I have a surprise for you. That evening, I took them not to our small apartment, but to a little house on a quiet, tree-lined street. It had a small backyard with a swing set. I had closed on it the week before, using the profits from my business. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't a palace of white, sterile perfection. But it was ours. As I tucked them into their new beds and their new rooms that night, Leo looked up at me. Mommy, he said, his voice serious. Are we going to have to go on any more adventures? I smoothed his hair back from his forehead. No, buddy, I said softly. The adventure is over. We're home. I stood in the doorway for a long time, watching them sleep. The house was quiet, filled with a deep and profound peace. My fight was over. I hadn't just built a business. I hadn't just won a court case. I had built a sanctuary. I had reclaimed my life, not for revenge, but for them. And in the quiet of our new home, I finally understood. He hadn't called me nothing. He had called me free. 1 year later, the world was a different color. The gray wash of fear and uncertainty had been replaced by the warm, vibrant tones of a life I had built with my own two hands. Aura Events was no longer a fledgling startup. It was the most sought-after event management firm in Beacon Harbor. We had a beautiful office downtown, a full-time staff of 12, and a waiting list of clients. But my real success wasn't measured in profit margins or press mentions. It was measured in the sound of my children's laughter echoing through the rooms of our small, sun-filled house. It was in the stability of our routine, school, homework, dinner together at the kitchen table, story time before bed. Leo was thriving in his new school, his confidence restored. Maya was a whirlwind of glitter and dance recitals, her nightmares a distant memory. They were happy. They were safe. That was the only empire that ever truly mattered. Tonight, we were managing the annual Beacon Harbor Children's Hospital Benefit Gala. It was the most prestigious charity event of the year, and they had chosen us. I stood on a balcony overlooking the ballroom, a headset on, my team moving like a well-oiled machine below. The room was a glittering sea of the city's elite, the air buzzing with generosity and goodwill. Everything was perfect. Rita's voice crackled in my ear. Amelia, we have a situation at the west entrance. Someone's trying to get in without a ticket. He's causing a bit of a scene. Says he knows you? My stomach tightened. What's the name? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Ethan Vance. I took a slow, steadying breath. It's all right. Rita, let him in. Send him up to the balcony. I'll handle it. Are you sure? I'm sure, I said. Keep the floor running. I turned and waited. A few moments later, he emerged from the stairwell. The man who walked towards me was a ghost. His expensive suit was rumpled and didn't hang right on his frame, which was thinner than ever. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollowed out with a desperation that had replaced his old arrogance. The titan of industry was gone. In his place was a tired, broken man. Amelia, he said, his voice raspy. Ethan, I replied, my tone level. You shouldn't be here. I had to see you, he said, his eyes scanning the opulent scene below. He shook his head in disbelief. This, all of this, is you? My team and I. Yes. He let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. I lost it all. You know, the Redding Group deal fell through after the custody hearing. It caused a domino effect. My investors pulled out. The company, it's gone. Bankrupt. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. And to my surprise, I meant it. I felt no triumph, no satisfaction. Just a quiet, weary sadness for the man he might have been. Chloe left. He continued, as if reciting a list of his own failures. She took what was left. I'm living in a rented room downtown. I saw your name in the paper for this event, and I had to try. He took a step closer, his hands outstretched in a pleading gesture. Amelia, I was a fool. A blind, arrogant fool. I destroyed the best thing that ever happened to me. I destroyed us. I remained silent, watching him. This was the moment I had once fantasized about, the scene where he would finally see what he had lost. But now that it was here, I felt nothing but a profound sense of distance. He was a character from a book I had read a long time ago. I need your help, he whispered, his eyes filling with tears. I have nothing. No one. You are always the one who fixed things. Please, fix this. Fix me. There's nothing to fix. Ethan, I said gently. That life is over. No, it's not, he insisted, his voice rising with desperation. Think of the children. They need their father. They need a proper family. We can start again. I'll do anything. I'll work for you. I'll sweep the floors. Just don't leave me with nothing. He was on his knees. The great Ethan Vance was kneeling before me, not in a crowded ballroom, but on a quiet, shadowed balcony. His pride shattered into a million pieces at my feet. A year ago, this sight might have felt like justice. Now, it just felt tragic. I knelt down, not to his level, but to look him in the eye. The children are fine. Ethan, I said, my voice soft but firm. They are loved. They are secure. And they do have a whole family. They have me. What they need from you is a father who gets his life together. For their sake, not for mine. I stood up and took a business card from my pocket. It was for a therapist I knew, a good one who specialized in career and life transitions. I placed it in his hand. This is the only way I can help you, I said. Help yourself. Be the father Leo and Maya can one day be proud of. That's all I ask. He stared at the card in his hand, then up at me. His face a mask of utter defeat. He had come here looking for a savior, a partner, a target for his blame. He had found none of those things. He had only found a stranger. Goodbye, Ethan, I said. And I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I walked back into the light and noise of the gala, the world I had built. I put my headset back on. Rita, how's the silent auction closing? I asked. My voice all business. Closing in 5 minutes. We've already exceeded our fundraising goal. She chirped, her voice full of excitement. Excellent, I said. Tell the team great job. Let's bring this home. I stayed on the balcony. But this time I wasn't watching for him. I was watching the hundreds of happy people below. I saw the head of the children's hospital, a woman I deeply admired, laughing with a major donor. I saw my team working in perfect sync. I saw a beautiful, intricate machine of joy and generosity, and I was its architect. Later that night, long after the last truck had been loaded and the last light turned off, I drove home. The streets of Beacon Harbor were quiet. I pulled into the driveway of my small house and cut the engine. Sitting for a moment in the silence, I walked inside. The scent of home of cinnamon from a school project and clean laundry enveloping me. I went to their rooms first. I pushed open Leo's door and saw him curled on his side, his math homework on the desk beside him. A problem about 2 trains leaving to different cities. He had solved it. Then I went to Maya's room. She was asleep. Her stuffed elephant, Ellie, tucked under her arm. A half-finished crayon drawing of our family, just the 3 of us, holding hands under a giant, smiling sun was on her nightstand. I bent down and kissed each of them on the forehead. They were my foundation. They were my empire. He had said I was a mistake from the start. He was wrong. I was not a mistake. I was a beginning. My own.